Friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And welcome back to Going In Raw Count Out. Today we got a juicy top 10 list for you in podcast form. That's right. We're talking about Vince McMahon coming back to the WWE. Of course, it's been the big news story. Stephanie's gone. Rumors of a sale, which by the time this airs, I don't know, might have come back.
Happening. I'm going out of town, so it's entirely possible that Monday is announced.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's
whenever I dare to take a day off, something huge happens.
Happens every sitting here all sweating by myself. Oh, what do you think, Steve? I don't know. Why are you talking to yourself? So, yeah, all things Vince McMahon coming back to WWE, sort of a nightmare scenario to start off 2023, but here we are. And we're going to talk about 10 ways, because here's the thing. I'll be honest with you. I don't know, Larson, if a list it could be conceived of even 3 things that are ways that he could help the WWE on his way back.
I don't know if I can think of 2, honestly. I don't know if I have a hard time thinking of 1. I don't see any scenario where Vince's return for everybody else other than Vince is a positive.
Yeah, right.
For WWE or the world of pro wrestling. I mean, Vince thinks it's a positive, but I think it's. I don't know if it's unanimous, but I think the overwhelming majority of people, I would imagine, I haven't done a poll, would see Vince returning only serving as a detriment to the future of WWE. Whether he's in, whether it's his capacity as chairman of the board, whether he forces his way into a larger role day to day, who knows? But I don't really see a whole lot of good that can come out of it.
No, so we're going to focus on the bad. This is top 10 ways Vince could ruin the WWE. He's going to inject a poison. Did you remember? Did you watch that one live when he was going to talk about when he talked about injecting the NWO into? Were we watching at the time? It was 2002, wasn't it?
That was I was kind of watching like off and on.
Inject a poison into WWE. It's 2002, 2003, something like that. Anyways, let's talk about this. We'll go ahead and start off with number 10.
10.
He's going to scare off potential free agents. So on February 18th, there's a big show being run over here in the Bay Area for New Japan Professional Wrestling. The show is sold out. And largely it's understood that it's sold out because it's going to feature the first New Japan Professional Wrestling match for Mercedes Moné, formerly known as Sasha Banks. By the way, have you seen on Twitter somebody took Mercedes Moné's theme song and Tron, and then whenever she says Moné in the theme, they replace it with Dave Meltzer saying Moné. I gotta send it to you. It's the best thing I've ever seen.
I've not seen it. I have not seen it. Going back, I think this is where you're going with bringing up Mercedes is with Triple H in charge of creative, Nick Khan now solo CEO. I think probably the thought might have been that there is a possibility that Mercedes could go and pursue endeavors outside of WWE.
Correct.
Wrestling endeavors, non-wrestling endeavors, whatever. And at some point, if she chose to do so, come back to WWE. But I think if Vince is just there in any capacity, not even, resuming his role as a CEO, head of creative, so on and so forth, just there, just kind of like the specter of Vince.
Yeah.
I think would give her and probably a lot of other people, especially those who have experience there in WWE dealing with his creative whims, pause before even considering going back.
Yeah, I think that's an actual consideration to be had. FTR, another example. Their contracts are coming up, if Dax is to be believed, in April. And I know a lot of people sort of figured, including you and I, hey, they dropped all these titles across all the promotions, the tag titles that they had racked up. And it seems pretty obvious. Dax had even said, I hope to work with Cody Rhodes very soon. If Vince McMahon is there is always the threat. Like you said, the specter, the idea, the sense of dread that he could just one day saunter back to the gorilla position, talk to Triple H, you're out of here, pal. I don't like what you're doing. And then he's back. And then where's FTR stuck then? With long-term contracts, doing a clown act, basically, is the idea. And like you said, that could happen across the board. That could happen to any number of wrestlers who are eager to come back to WWE and might find their way, might have thought about finding their way back. And I wonder if what would happen first, sort of like the status of the WWE as it pertains to who owns it. If that would have to be settled, and if, let's say, for example, for whatever reason, the Saudi deal, if it's not a real thing, if it does not happen, Comcast buys them, or NBC Universal buys them, and they're like, McMahon, we're going to buy it, but you're out of here. What would happen first? That, or Vince McMahon the WWE stays the way it's at, and Vince McMahon just stays where he's at. No hope of, or no desire to come back to creative. Like, would it take a year of just the status quo, things going good under Triple H, and then free agents would be like, you know what? Okay, I got a relationship with Triple H. Sure, Vince McMahon doesn't seem interested in this anymore.
That'd be a tough situation if it were the latter, where it was Vince. He's like, okay, I'm content to be chairman of the board. I, kind of have general oversight of the company, but day-to-day operations, not interested. That dude can wake up one day and decide, change my mind. I want to run the whole thing now.
Psych.
Yeah, and that's kind of, again, the specter of Vince is he's kind of unpredictable in that regard.
Right.
He follows whims that are confounding to a lot of people. And if he wakes up one morning 2 years from now, 79 years old, gets his pump on in the gym and struts out of the gym thinking, oh, I still got it.
Yeah.
And then decides, I'm gonna take the book back. Well, guess what? You're 2 years into a 5-year deal, and you got 3 years left dealing with this guy.
Yeah.
When you thought you were in the clear.
On clown duty again. Yeah.
If it's a situation where, say, by the middle of the year, by the summer, where the situation of WWE is being sold or not is resolved, whether they're bought, no one buys them, they get a new TV deal, whatever. And there's some clarity as far as what Vince's role is going to be. Because I guess one scenario we haven't talked about is he's back as the chairman of the board. They're off pursuing a sale, media rights deals. Let's say Vince is around and there's no takers to buy the company because he's there. Well, he turns his sights to getting a new TV deal. Everybody's cool giving a new TV deal, but not with Vince. I don't know how he's going to be able to swallow that pill.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then if he can't, I don't know where that takes the company.
Yeah, that's a nasty impasse right there. I don't know. We can talk about complicating TV deals here in just a second. Let's move ahead to number 9. Upset morale.
So by all accounts, morale was, up until late last week, really good after Vince left. There had been several reports that morale, both at Titan Towers and in the locker room amongst talent and production, had seen a dramatic increase after Vince left. There's a lot of the angst about talent's creative seemingly alleviated once Triple H had the book. And by all accounts, in the executive building at Titan Towers in Stamford, Triple H talking about having an emphasis on rest,
right.
And I know we kind of joke about him needing his sleep, but I think the idea is you can't let this job be the entirety of your life. You need time away to recover, to rest, to be, the best you can be. And under Vince, that wasn't the case. It was all, if I'm going to work 20-hour days, guess what? You got to work 20-hour days. I'm working all weekend. You're working all weekend. Not everybody's Vince McMahon. Not everybody can work like that.
No, I don't think most of the people in this world don't want to work that way. It's just not a smart way to work. Whether it's the locker room, it's the writer's room, whatever, morale is going to tank. You've seen, we mentioned reports primarily, we read several Fightful reports, Fightful Select, to indicate that morale is at an all-time high because, generally speaking, over the past, multiple years, two people that have really generated quite a bit of trust and goodwill in the locker room is Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. Well, Stephanie's gone, and if Vince does come back, again, even the specter of Vince could put people on edge. It seems to already be accomplishing that. And yeah, if the status quo remains and he remains at Titan Towers and doesn't, call down a Triple H every time he sees something on his program that, God damn it, put a bucket back on Karrion Kross's head. As long as he's not meddling in the day-to-day, I assume that morale will stay pretty much high for the most part. If people get used to Vince just being there outside of their day-to-day, then eventually it'll just become a normal thing, and they'll just deal with, his return if it actually happens. But his return to the company seemingly will have, immediately an uneasy effect on people like Karrion Kross. These are just people that we've seen on TV, let alone the people who might have crossed paths with Vince, backstage behind the scenes and had negative encounters with him. But yeah, his return will most likely, for many people, lead to an uneasy feeling, maybe even a sense of dread.
Yeah. I mean, and the Fightful Select reports about all the stuff happening over the last week or so. There's been a lot of talk of talent having concern about, now that Vince is back with the company, him finding his way back towards booking the shows again.
Yeah.
And they're back to where they were, earlier in 2022, where there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of lack of focus in the creative, constant rematches.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to take a while, if it happens at all, I would imagine, for people to feel any sense of ease, knowing Vince is just kind of around.
Yeah.
To kind of get comfortable again, because it's, at any moment he could decide, all right, I'm going to do this. Just don't know.
Yeah. Just don't know. Let's move on. Number 8. He could send the stock crashing. Now, obviously, his return most likely coupled with the idea that the WWE is about to be sold. Actually,
I think that's what's really doing it.
Right? Yeah.
Sent the stock be sold. Yes.
Sent the stock up, but interestingly enough, due to the this past week on Tuesday night, the idea that WWE was about to be sold to the Saudi Arabia Private Investment Fund, more on them later, sent the stock to go down a little bit. Back in mid 2020, the stock from WWE had a bit of a crash because their earnings report fell short of expectations. And that stuff is not, Wall Street does not look kindly on that kind of thing. If Vince comes back and he allows his ego to run unchecked, which is typical Vince behavior, if he complicates business relationships, if for whatever reason his presence there leads to a TV deal, for example, that isn't some sort of multiplier over the way I have now, there's a very good chance that the WWE stock will go down, will crash, and it could happen just like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible too if he comes back and is looking for a business suitor to purchase the company and is having difficulty doing that.
Yeah,
it can possibly lead to the stock going down as well.
The idea, and we're going to talk about this more a little bit as well, but the idea that there is potentially an open SEC investigation into him, and who knows what other undisclosed public information is yet to be made public. If that comes out, that alone could send stock crashing. If there's all of a sudden 3 more allegations out there, or even one more allegation that hits hard, that stock might go down because nobody wants to be associated with him. Exactly. I don't have any stock in WWE. Do you have any stock in WWE?
No.
The Enforcer does. He revealed that publicly on NMF Steve.
Oh, wow.
He didn't say how much. But he was happy with the way his stock went the other day because it went up.
Yeah.
But be careful, Enforcer. It could come crashing down. Let's move on here with number 7. This would be a bummer, especially for a recent NXT signee, Stevie Turner. He could rescind the third-party money-making opportunities that he had done before. So we're talking about, of course, Twitch, Cameo, things like that. That seemingly, so back in, I think it was 2020, and a lot of wrestlers started to hop on Twitch. AJ Styles, Dakota Kai, Mia Yim, Johnny Gargano.
Zelina Vega. Yeah,
famously Zelina Vega. Paige. They got on Twitch, and they were able to make a decent little side hustle some money on the side doing this stuff. The third party. I mean, I know Lana was making money hand over fist with social media advertisement integrations. And so Vince McMahon, was not into the idea that, I'm paying these independent contractors. I own them. If they want to trade on not even their name, because half of them weren't even using their name. See Chugs. Mm-hmm. They were acting like there were other people. but just the fact that it was them doing it. Now, I suppose if Chugs had worn like a ski mask and called himself Chugs, maybe in that situation he would have been in the clear. I don't know, in like a voice alteration device.
Maybe.
He could have been in the clear.
All hits that it was Adam Cole.
Maybe. So Vince McMahon, not happy that people are making money and he didn't get a piece of that money, decided to shut all that down, and even a plea in person in a meeting from Xavier Woods, who had famously made the WWE a lot of money through Up, Down, Down, it fell on deaf ears with Vince McMahon. Once he left, Triple H, Nick Khan, Stephanie McMahon, the new regime seemed to be quite a bit looser. You see people streaming on Twitch quite a bit now, and making some extra change. Well, now that Vince is back, this is actually one that I honestly think is probably going to happen sooner than later. I think he's probably going to put the clamp back down on that.
It's entirely possible. It's something he can do without resuming day-to-day, control of the company, I think. Seemingly he could rewrite the company bylaws on a whim.
Yeah, he can kind of do whatever he wants now.
So if he wakes up one day again and just says, people are making too much money outside WWE when they're using their likenesses, which they sign in their contract, we have rights to, can't have that. So it's possible.
Given that it was a relatively, compared to the size of the roster, a relatively small number of wrestlers who were engaged in this kind of activity, do you think that Vince McMahon even knows that that's happening? Do you think he knows that Johnny Gargano's with the company? He watches the show, right?
I don't know.
Really?
I don't know. I don't know.
That's a tough one, huh?
That is a tough one. I mean, something tells me that if he's not in gorilla position producing the show, he probably doesn't watch any wrestling, or didn't.
Man, I don't know. I really don't. I'm kind of curious about that. I mean, he's
whether
a workaholic.
He follows what's going on. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I have no idea. But yeah, no. If he comes back and starts, exercising any measure of power now that he's back as executive chairman, I would not be surprised. This is one of the first things that he says. God damn it. Can't have this anymore.
God damn it. Can't do it. It's my company, my money. And then all that money they made on Twitch. I really appreciate that Paige was like, yeah, fuck off.
Yeah, no.
Like, I'm just going to do this anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool of her.
Yeah, it is cool of her.
Yeah. Anyways, we're going to take a break here to pay some bills. Larson, what do you say?
Let's do it. Let's take a break here. Get a word from our sponsor, ExpressVPN. Steve, going online without ExpressVPN is like changing with your windows open.
Wow.
Sure, you might not be seen by some random people maybe walking by, but why give those random people a chance to invade your privacy?
Oh, man, I've seen everything. You see, when you go online without a VPN, internet service providers can see every single website you visit, and then they can legally sell this information to ad companies and tech giants. Oh, those tech giants, who then use that data to target you.
Oh, I can't stand it when those ad companies and tech giants target me with ads. I just can't stand it, Steve. It drives me crazy. Absolutely crazy.
You're the targeted.
Apparently, which is why I use ExpressVPN, because after I fire up the ExpressVPN app and hit that connect button, those internet service providers can't see my online activity because my data is encrypted for my maximum protection. Plus, ExpressVPN works on all my devices, including my phone, my laptop, even my router. So everyone who uses Wi-Fi and the Larson house can be protected.
So secure your online activity by visiting expressvpn.com/GIR today. That's expressvpn.com/GIR, and you can get an extra 3 months for free. expressvpn.com/GIR.
And let's take another quick break here, friendos. This episode of Going in Raw is sponsored by BetterHelp. Steve, it took me a while to find out what I'm like when I'm at my best. I've talked about it here on the show. For a few years in my 20s, I was feeling really overwhelmed by life. started dealing with severe anxiety, and it got to the point where I realized that I needed to go to therapy. Working with a therapist helped me find better ways to cope with my anxiety, empowered me to be more prepared for whatever life throws my way, and set me on the path to hopefully becoming a better Larson.
Man, I think you got to that path. I think you did.
Oh,
anyway.
Thanks, pal.
So if you're thinking about giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, flexible, affordable, and completely online. All you got to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get you matched up with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time and for no additional charge.
If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/raw today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/raw.
Let's move on with our list of ways Vince McMahon can ruin the WWE now that he's returned as executive chairman. Number 6. He could drag the government into the WWE. Ooh. Man, oh man. So according to a letter that was sent to Vince McMahon from the WWE Board of Directors on December 27th of this past year, there's an ongoing investigation into Vince McMahon from La Federalis. That's right, the federal government. In the letter, board members from the WWE didn't feel that he should come back due to the pending government investigations of his conduct from the U.S. Attorney's Office and SEC. Am I to read that right as like separate investigations, or you think it'd be like?
So. I mean, separate investigative bodies. Yes.
My God. So back in July 2022, at the time, the SEC and federal prosecutors were actively looking into more than $12 million in hush money that McMahon reportedly paid to former female employees to silence allegations of sexual misconduct and harassment. The last time the government got involved in the WWE, it was 1994, 1995, Vince's steroid trial, and we saw what the state of the WWE was at the time. I don't know if any of this stuff would necessarily be like criminal investigations, but I don't know. At the time, back then, there was the idea that Vince could go to jail, and it was rumored that Jerry Jarrett would take over the company. I don't know if he would now have Jeff Jarrett take over the company or not, Larson.
Oh, probably not. He works for AEW now.
That's a good point. But certainly, this can't be good for anybody. If you look at WWF back in 1995, I'll be honest with you, it was shit, man. I started watching the first episode of Raw last week just for shits and giggles. I cannot believe how much of a slog 45 minutes is. We think we have it bad with 3 hours. Man, that 45 was like, this is dog shit. Like, God, the company seems, and this was supposed to be like their flagship. I have a theory that USA at the time was like, WWE's kind of dog shit. Let's just go ahead and give him this Raw show. It'll fade away. Nobody will watch it. And then it'll be the end of the WWF here on USA. And then it ended up doing pretty well.
Yeah, ended up doing pretty well a couple years later. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it was, when Vince was all distracted, and Bruce Pritchard has talked about this on his podcast. Mm-hmm. Everything is uneasy. Everybody's distracted. Everything is consumed with the trial. And then he starts referencing it on TV. It gets weird. It's just, you don't want Vince McMahon in the WWE while some sort of freaking either one or multiple government investigations is going on. We've been there. It's ugly. You don't want that again.
No, you don't want that again. I would think the SEC one would not necessarily be, it'd be for, like regulatory violations or something like that. The U.S. Attorney General could entirely be a criminal investigation. Don't know the nature of it in specifics. We don't know.
Undisclosed public information.
Yes. So yeah, you're right about all that. It's and I don't know how possible, but it would be. But if the government started investigating Vince WB in this respect, who's to say they couldn't, in the course of their investigation, broaden the scope of it?
Oh, by the way, sorry, quick. The first episode of Raw was actually 93.
93,
yeah, 93, not 95. But it was close enough. We're getting there.
Yeah, it's in the same area, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the investigation
I always
was going on
conflate that
for a while,
with the first episode of Nitro. Nitro was 95, first
95,
episode of 93, yeah.
And I'm not saying it would necessarily expand to the scope of something like investigating how WWE classifies their wrestlers as independent contractors while treating them like employees, but any kind of governmental focus on WWE and sort of investigation puts a larger spotlight and magnifying glass on how WWE conducts some of their business. And they probably don't want any of that.
Dude, it's like, pulling at a thread on a sweater, It's like, oh, they got this one little thing, and then all of a sudden you just have a mass of, fucking wool or whatever, but it's WWE. The WWE Unraveled.
Yes.
So that's going to be the name of our podcast.
WWE Unraveled.
WWE Unraveled, yeah. A special series from Stephen Larson. So anyways, you don't want the government involved in your shit, whether you're a big business like WWE or a mom and pop shop, or, a podcast like us. Luckily, we don't have any investigations into us yet, Larson.
Hopefully you don't.
Maybe 2023 will be the year.
Oh, gosh, no.
Let's move on then. Number 5. Alienate advertisers.
So just with Vince's mere presence in the company, Steph talked about this. Like during the initial stages of the investigation and after the report surfaced of the allegations against Vince, there were holds on advertisers.
Yeah, they paused
put
their
holds on their campaigns. Now that Vince is back in some capacity, are advertisers going to pause their buys? Are they going to take pause in terms of doing business with WWE, knowing Vince is there, and there's not just the spotlight on him due to the allegations that have already been made public. You got the aforementioned SEC investigation, the U.S. Attorney General investigation. Plus, in that letter, what was the phrase you used?
Oh, shit, I forget. Oh, undisclosed public information.
Undisclosed non-public information.
Non-public information, yeah. Yeah, oof, oh boy.
That's that. All of that. All of that.
I killed a guy. God
all of that. Like, advertisers don't want any bit of controversy.
No, you roll all that controversy into one big ball.
Yeah, and if Vince is just all controversy, advertisers are going to step away.
God damn it, we lost Beyblade. That was paying out 50 large. 50,000. That's not very much, Vince.
No, that's not very much.
Not for WWE. They're going to look, man. They're going to go back to karate fighters. And that's not even a thing anymore. So they're going to have to find some local garage sale that's selling some old karate fighters and try to get them to sponsor
town
WWE.
They're just going to be the local swap meet that's sponsoring the show.
Exactly. It's going to be WWE brought to you by Denios in Roseville.
Yep.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, it's an incredibly valid point. I mean, so much of their money comes from advertising revenue. And I don't know what kind of share WWE gets versus what Peacock. I think Peacock. I don't know if there's a revenue split there.
Well, I mean, I think there's different things in terms of the commercials. Yeah. I would think whoever broadcasts the show would get a majority, if not all of that, because that would cover the cost of paying for the programming. Whereas WWE has sponsors for
the zombie movie. WWE made $1 million.
Mountain Dew is sponsoring a match at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, the Pitch Black match.
Yeah.
I wonder how much that cost. Wasn't the zombies thing $1 million?
Oh, I don't remember.
$1 million isn't that much. I feel like we can get a match sponsored, Larson. I mean, it's
not for that kind of money.
How much
$10 maybe. Yeah, I could probably do $10.
$10. Okay, $10 for a going in Raw match. Dude, advertisers don't want no part of that kind of shit. And Vince McMahon being there, he just doesn't come off as the most professional guy in the world. And advertisers, they want to deal with a clean company,
Yeah.
It's not really Vince McMahon.
No.
Anyways, let's move on. Number 4. He could complicate negotiations for a TV deal.
See, what I said about advertisers is applied to TV broadcasting companies. I mean, that's the thing about him coming back, especially if he's going to try to sell and leverage that with the idea that he's going to come back in a more kind of permanent day-to-day role.
Yeah.
I don't see how any media company is going to want to deal with that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there was already a report from Fightful Select, the idea that Vince McMahon, were he to so let's see here. I'm looking at this Fightful Select article from August 30th. So this is a month or so after Vince left, a little more than a month, maybe 2 months after he left. It says the immediate WWE changes left USA Network happy, according to sources. WWE's Raw's viewership numbers exploded the first week of the Triple H-led show after Vince retired. Fightful reached out to several USA Network and Universal sources about the change. Numbers that came with them. One longtime employee that has worked alongside WWE Project said that this was more in line with the numbers the company expected when they extended Raw's deal, but the pandemic changed everything. Let's see here. Yeah, they were happy with the way the company was going. I know there was another one when the idea that Vince was coming back. USA, some like people at USA Network were like, "What does this mean? Like, what you know, this is just rocking the boat. Things were going really smooth. He doesn't need to come back. Why is he coming back?" And that is something that they definitely need to consider. I'm sure. Look, on the same note, I'm sure there are people in the media world that probably are happy to work with WWE because he's a known commodity and they've had a long-standing relationship with him. But again, people don't like the boat to be rocked, and Vince has obviously a lot of baggage coming with him. That's why I think he wants the Saudi deal to go through, because it allows, they're not going to care about that baggage. They're not going to care about that. Nope. I mean, USA Network might still have a problem, with the entirety of the deal. I don't know. But that remains to be seen. Vince has a lot of baggage. And if they don't sell the company, they're still going to need to get these TV deals done. And this is just an X factor that rocks the boat.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. And I mean, as you've mentioned, and as we've talked about several times, we would expect some measure of a multiplier over the last TV deal with the next one. And if Vince is around complicating matters, networks might not be willing to offer a deal that large.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and then you see the stock go down, and then people aren't happy. Yep. The enforcer's not happy. Let's move on to number 3.
We need to keep enforcer happy.
We definitely, we try. We do our best. Number 3. He could undo everything Triple H has done creatively. He doesn't even have to go back to resuming day-to-day. Couple text messages. Hey, pal. Those guys are rehired? Get rid of them. Release them. And you're gonna, and I want you to say that was you. And you got to ask yourself, like, how much meddling from Titan Towers via text message will Triple H put up with before he's like, I can't do my job, because Vince is just he thinks that it's a small thing, but he's unraveling everything. He could totally undo everything Triple H has done. And look, you and I are as honest as we can be about reviewing Raw and SmackDown, and it's not all perfect, but there have been some things that are obvious that would have happened under Vince McMahon. I mean, one thing when I say undo everything Triple H has done creatively, there are greater ramifications for that. He's brought back a lot of people. This could lead to a lot of people losing their jobs.
Yeah, it could.
Which is kind of more tragic than anything that happens, on the TV screen that we watch, is people losing out on their jobs. But, we have appreciated a lot of what Triple H has done. Creatively speaking, on our TV. The guy really does seem to take character and story as the most important thing. There's been things that he's tried that he's gone back on. There's been storylines that he's dropped, but it does seem like he's sort of trying his best to set everything up in place to have good payoffs down the line. And Vince could, he could undo all that shit with the text message. He could undo all that stuff.
Yeah, he definitely could. And Triple H in charge and creative hasn't necessarily been a sea change.
Right.
He hasn't necessarily reinvented the wheel in terms of WWE tells stories or what kind of stories they tell, but he applies seemingly the bare minimum of what you should expect from someone who's telling stories, and that they're for the most part logical. They progress in a manner that makes sense, although they can tend to be a little bit long at times, but everything makes sense during the course of the story. Characters have clear motivations. And we don't get endless rematches.
No, and little things that used to not be explained, which were easily explainable, are now being explained. Rey Mysterio wants to move over to, or Rey Mysterio wants to leave. Triple H says, "Hey, are you coming to SmackDown?" And what happens in return? Baron Corbin shows up on Raw, and that's explained. Mia Yim gets a name change, that's explained, and they actually transition it so that they get first as a nickname, and then the nickname develops into just what they call her. It's all stuff that makes sense, and that's the kind of world-building attention to detail that you need to keep your audience invested. That this is a world that is being built. This is a world that is real, and we can buy into it, and there aren't giant gaps in logic.
Yeah.
And that's what was going on before Triple H took over, is there's just massive quantum leaps in logic that like were impossible to get past. And then you start focusing on that as opposed to, the actual stories being told, which under Vince were few and far between.
Yeah, they were. I mean, it's a situation where you're building a world in a fictional narrative medium. You got to establish the ground rules for that world you're building. And then you got to adhere to those ground rules. If you don't do that, that's when confusion happens. That's when you're like, this doesn't make any sense. What the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
Why are they fighting for 5 weeks in a row, seemingly over and over, like Cotton in the movie Groundhog Day?
Yeah.
And it would seem like Vince. I mean, we've joked that WB rule book that you have is a sketch pad. That's kind of a WB in a nutshell under Vince. Is like, okay, this is how it is unless I change my mind.
Yeah.
Whatever ground rules he sets for himself, he'd seemingly break just because he wanted to, rather than just motivated by anything. If you're going to break those ground rules, they got to be motivated by something.
Right, exactly.
And they very rarely were.
Yeah.
And it led to a frustrating viewing experience for a lot of viewers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know you'd see all sorts of bitching about stuff online, and then, we'd take the piss out of it too. And it's like, your show is not supposed to be, fodder for unintentional humor. It's not, we're not supposed to be, ideally we're sitting here talking about the stories and the characters and what they're doing, not like, why did this guy do this all of a sudden? Why is this person acting like a completely different human being, and then laughing at you. Anyways, let's move on to number 2. He could actually force his way back into day-to-day control. And that would have with it all sorts of problems, including the one we just talked about, and that's taking over creative, being at the gorilla position, people camping outside his door for days on end to try to get a meeting with him, and then nothing ever comes with it. Creative that's done and dropped. But honestly, dude, for me, the bigger issue with him being back day to day is the culture that was established while he was there running day to day. The sexual harassment, the bullying, all that shit. It just seemed to be low morale across the board.
Yeah.
Except if you're like Brock Lesnar, that seems like a nightmare for everybody involved at WWE.
Yeah, it definitely does. It definitely does. If that were to happen, if he were to resume day-to-day control, you would assume that Triple H would either be out of a job or move to a different department, and Nick Khan would probably be gone too. Two people that seemingly are very popular and well-liked by most within WWE. And then they're out. The morale associated with their tenure is out, and then you get this toxic work environment yet again with Vince running things.
Well, you got like Bruce Pritchard doing 3 different jobs, or God forbid Johnny Ace comes back to the company. Which could totally, that could happen tomorrow. That's totally something that could happen, and I'll be honest, I kind of expect it to. And you see what happens with that. We have legal documentation on that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that could be absolutely terrible. You're just back to where you were, and it's just, you sit there and you just feel for the people that you're covering. It's like, God damn, that sucks to be them. And it's like, there's no place for that kind of management style.
Nope.
In 2023. But that's definitely one way he could just sort of ruin WWE. But it's not the top way. The top way is number 1. He could sell the whole company to the Saudi private investment fund.
I think if number 1 happens, pretty much everything from 2 through 10 would happen.
That's the thing. Yeah, it's just if that thing happens, everything else that
like, I think if Vince just kind of remains as chairman of the board, some of this stuff could happen individually, or maybe a couple in conjunction. But I think if one happens, if he sells to the Saudi Arabia private investment fund, basically all these things could happen, save for the stock tanking, because there won't be any stock, because if there's any measure of truth, and that's the rumors going out Tuesday night about the deal already being done have been disputed, and seemingly at this juncture there's no deal.
Again, we're taping this on Wednesday, the 11th.
So by the time this goes up, it could be a done deal. Who knows? Where was I going with that? I don't remember.
It was if number one happens, everything else could happen.
Except for the stock
because
it won't be stock because part of the deal, as was rumored, was that the company would go private.
Right. Yeah.
And there would be no stockholders.
Yeah.
So everything else could easily, conceivably, and probably likely happen.
Yeah, I don't see, like you said, except for the stock situation, I kind of feel like everything else would probably happen. I mean, we've seen what happened with Live Golf, the Saudi private investment fund funded golf thing. How they've had a problem finding, media rights deals and probably advertisers as well.
Yep. I mean, from a variety of perspective, it's been a public relations nightmare.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. There'd be plenty, not of free agents who don't want to go there. Plenty of the current crop of talent would want the fuck out of there. Fightful Select has said there's top talent that would walk out if this deal happened.
The most likely way that Vince assumes day-to-day control once again is if it's part of the deal with the Saudi Arabia private investment fund.
And dude, man, I don't like to be a conspiracy theory guy. I really don't. That's your thing. That's a joke. But the idea that Vince McMahon went home when he was, kicked out, started immediately formulating a plan to get back. Well, how do I do that? Sell the company to the Saudis because that leaves me in charge. Gets a huge bag. They can probably pay more than anybody else. They could probably pay foolish money. And then what? He comes right back within days. He's got JP Morgan. Yeah, close this deal. I fucking think this shit's happening, and it's
entirely possible. It's entirely possible.
Kind of a nightmare. Yeah,
it is potentially a real nightmare situation on a lot of fronts for WWE because, as we saw with Live Golf, were they going to have trouble getting a TV deal? They're going to have trouble attracting advertisers to sponsor their programming.
Yeah,
they'll have issues bringing in free agents. Morale's going to go in the toilet. I mean, if Vince is back in charge, he's going to rescind those third-party money-making deals.
That's happening. Yeah,
like basically everything on here would happen seemingly if number one comes to fruition.
The only potential silver lining, and I say this because, people come into this business to make money, is that with the funding of the Saudi government, the people that are there might get significant pay raises. They could outbid anybody. They could outbid AEW. There's the potential that there would no longer be talent competition simply because WWE would be able to pay 3 times what AEW would pay. Now, would that actually happen? I have no idea.
I don't know.
But that investment fund is huge.
It is. It's massive. But, there's a possibility that some people, prospective free agents, could see, the offer and be like, wow, that's huge. I mean, it's not like they would get paid peanuts from, say, AEW or something like that. But, sometimes you can't put a price tag on peace of mind.
No, absolutely. I agree. I agree. But if it does mean that there are people out there who are like, you know what? That's my name's Ben and I ain't in it.
Yeah.
And they get that money. I don't really necessarily blame them for it.
I understand that for any professional athlete, whether you're playing baseball, football, basketball, or professional wrestler, your prime money-making window isn't that huge.
Yeah.
And I understand that aspect of it. I do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to the individual whether they could, make peace with the business arrangement in front of them.
Dude, everybody's different. Like, Mox has said, how much more money do I need? I've got, I got my truck paid off. That's all I really need. But as other people might take that philosophy. Hey, I want to set up my family for a very, very long time. And especially if you're like a mid-level talent who AEW, like it might be kind of the thing where WWE is going to be overpaying for mid-level talent. And it's like, if you're a mid-level talent, what I can make a third of that at AEW and be on Dark and Elevation, or I can be in WWE making a lot more. That's the kind of scenario really I'm talking about that I think is a possibility.
Totally.
And I wouldn't blame anybody for taking those opportunities because this is the business that they're trying to be in.
Yeah, definitely.
But this isn't a list about things that make WWE better. And I'll be honest with you, that's, I'm just sort of coming up with something. Because I think that's a possibility. I think if they have a ton of money, then, Vince McMahon, I don't think he'd have a problem throwing around the Saudis' money. It's like, oh, here, I'll spend AEW. I want this person. They're not going to outbid me for him. I don't know.
It's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. Anyways, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. We might have to do another one of these where we talk about like creative things that Vince McMahon could do should he take over creative. Ways that he can like take that number 3 and just do a whole list on that.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. You want to keep on bumming the people out here going in Raw.
I got stopped going on vacation then, apparently.
Nightmare situation. Yeah, right. Anyways, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Do us a huge favor. Hit that thumbs up. If you're listening to us in the audio realm, leave us a rating, or review, or a comment. It really does help going in Raw.
Does.
And until next time, we'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.